Well, it's good to see everybody here. Welcome. And I'm glad you've learned not to get up. One of the tables down there decided that they were really going back history and getting up. We're not going to get up yet because I have a few words that I want to talk about before we get to our music today. And I know that Don has just got his food there, so that gives me an opportunity to say a few words. You know, today is a very special day that we need to remember. It's the Day of Remembrance. You know, in 1942, Franklin Roosevelt signed an executive order, and we're dealing with lots of those these days. And his executive order was just like most of the executive orders that we've been hearing about, an unconstitutional executive order. And that is Executive Order 9066, which incarcerated all of our Japanese American citizens for World War II period of time. It really hit Seattle more than just about any place. On the continental United States, Seattle had the largest, other than Los Angeles and San Jose, had the largest Japanese American population of any city in the country. The families here in Seattle were taken to the Puyallup Fairgrounds at a place called Camp Harmony. So if you go to the Puyallup Fairgrounds now, there's a memorial that you might want to look at that talks about this. And from Camp Harmony, the Japanese Americans were transported to Idaho, a nice little place called Minidoka in Idaho. Now, if you've ever been there, you'll know it's not a nice little place. It's a place of desert, a place that is absolutely horrible. Now, we're facing that today. And I want you all to understand that that is something that we don't want repeated. And so I'm editorializing right now. But we have a need in this country to keep our eyes out and make sure that what happened in 1942 never happens again. And I was going to mention this at the end. You know, I like to talk about things that have happened on this day in history. I don't need to mention this executive order because we like to keep it a little lighter at the end of the day. One other thing I want to mention to everybody, and this has to do with some of the executive orders, we in Rotary care very much about USAID. We care about it because of our international service, the need of caring for people worldwide. This has affected all of us, and we are going to hear more from our International Service Committee. Maddie Von Hoff will talk about this at our next session. So I want everybody to be aware of that. Keep your eyes out for all of our Rotary information because that will tell us a lot about what's happening right now. Our Polio Plus, our malaria, our caring for the health and welfare of people around the world are really affected right now by what has happened in this country. And just realize that that's all from this executive order stuff that I'm talking about. So keep that all in mind. It has to do with Rotary. We aren't supposed to be talking about political things, but this affects our organization. And that's where the rubber meets the road. Now, on a lighter note, I know we can all get up because Dawn is going to regale us with our music to start off our meeting.
remember, we do sing together. And even though they don't seem to want to do that at ball games anymore, I wish they did, let us sing together the national anthem. And Freeman is under the weather today, so we can't have him for our accompanist. So we are going to sing, as they say, a cappella, or as Jack Link used to say, Acapulco. Let us start. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proud we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran low, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Good. It sounded great.
Play ball. No. That's sort of the signal to sit down, finish your lunch, guys. We're just thrilled to have everyone here today. Thank you so much, Don, for this. And we hope that Freeman gets well again, although we did really well on an a cappella type of situation. I'm very proud of our whole group here. I want to thank Matt Albertson and Barton for greeting, and Pete Delaney for our meeting reporting, and our welcome guests that you're welcomed. There you are. We've got that all up on the board, and now I'd like to have Annie Black to come forward, because we have a special program to introduce our new member. Come on up, Annie.
Thank you, President John. It is my pleasure to introduce our new member, Juan Pablo Liendo, to Seattle 4. His membership is as a young Rotary leader with a classification in foundations and philanthropy. Cindy Sherrick, who is with us here today, is his proposer. Juan Pablo's motivation for joining Rotary is personal, for his grandfather was a Rotarian in San Felipe, Venezuela. He was raised in Caracas in a household that embodied Rotarian values, including community service. Although his mother and sister live in Venezuela, his cousins, nieces, and nephews live here in Seattle, where he gets to be a cool uncle. Juan Pablo has experienced Rotary's international presence firsthand, from having traveled extensively as a child and young adult and having encountered Rotarians globally. Starting at age 17, he lived in Germany for 2 years, attending an international boarding school. He took a gap year at age 19, where he worked in China for United World College as a resident assistant. After graduating from Whitman College in Walla Walla 3 years ago with a BA in Environmental Science, Politics, and Sustainable Planning, he moved to Seattle. He currently works for the Seattle Foundation as an associate grant administrator, where he manages the oversight and processing of grants. For hobbies, he enjoys listening to pop music from his vinyl collection and attending live concerts from Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, to the Gypsy Kings. As a child, he was fascinated in the mechanics of clocks and has started collecting watches. Juan Pablo enjoys living on Capitol Hill with Pete, his rescue puggle. And I just learned that a puggle is a cross between a pug and a beagle. Since moving to Seattle, he has taken up paddleboarding with Pete as his skipper, perched on the front of his board and sporting a fashionable red canine life preserver, as you can see. In the few months that he has been a member of this club, I've witnessed his buoyant enthusiasm and curiosity at various Rotary events. He has expressed a keen interest in contributing to our Seattle community and our club's international initiatives. I've had the privilege of being his Rotary mentor, and I'm confident he's going to thrive in this club. Please give a warm welcome to Juan Pablo Liendo.
I just want to be very clear. We now have somebody who's really involved here in Rotary. Bienvenido, Juan. I have to welcome him in Spanish, your first language. And we're glad to have you, and I know you're really involved in committee work and all, and that's just the way we like it. Congratulations. Wear the pin with pride.
Thank you.
Well, now we're going to start our program, and I'm going to have Janelle come on forward and do some introductions.
Thank you, President John. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Quinton Morris. He enjoys a multifaceted career as a violinist, educator, filmmaker, rodeo show host, and entrepreneur. Dr. Morris holds a doctorate in violin performance from the Butler School of Music at UT Austin, where he studied with Daniel Ching, the first violinist of the Mural Quartet. He also holds a Master of Music degree from the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley, where he studied with Lin Chang and Irina Marashanu. He has toured the global stage, performing at venues from Carnegie Hall to Sydney Opera House, from the Louvre Museum to here with our Seattle Symphony Orchestra. Dr. Morris has taught all over the world, having given master classes at institutions such as the National Taiwan Normal University, the Tumami University in Tanzania, the Monash University in Australia. Presently, Dr. Morris is a tenured professor of violin at Seattle University. He's the first Black man to reach the rank of professor in any academic field at Seattle University's College of Arts and Sciences, and is the only second living Black violinist to receive the title of Professor of Violin in the history of the United States. Yeah, pretty big deal. As part of his 2016 Breakthrough International Tour, Dr. Morris received the first Diamond Award at the European Independent Film Awards, as well as the Bronze Award at the Global Music Awards. Among many of his accolades, Dr. Morris is also the recipient of Seattle Magazine's 2024 Most Influential Educator Award and the Outstanding Studio Teacher Award by the Washington State chapter of the American String Teachers Association. In 2017, Dr. Morris founded Key to Change. It's a nonprofit violin and viola studio serving South King County. Key to Change creates opportunities for young musicians of color and those from underserved, lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Hundreds of students have received world-class music instruction under his tutelage and have won local awards, appeared as concert soloists with regional orchestras such as the Seattle Symphony, and even have performed for Dr. Jill Biden and Kamala Harris. When Dr. Morris isn't teaching or directing his organization, he may be found hosting Unmute the Voices, which is a radio show and video series sponsored by Classical King. So with all of that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Quinton Morris.
For a moment, I was like, who is she talking about? Wow. I'm so glad to be here. It always feels like I'm like a bit of a reunion because I see so many familiar faces here in the audience. And before you hear from me, I think it's good for you to hear from one of our students. And so one of our students is going to play for you today. And I'm really excited to welcome Layla West as she comes. She is a junior at Franklin High School. She's been in our program for almost 2 years. And Layla is going to play the Vivaldi, the first movement of the Vivaldi violin concerto in G minor. So she'll play for you first, and then we'll talk and have some fun. Okay, do you want to just tune? Just make sure. Have fun. What'd you think of that? Okay, be honest, adults. How many of you could do that? No, I'm really serious because that's the thing that we teach at Key to Change. We teach students how to do hard things. The violin or the viola is just the vehicle to the bigger picture, which is to be able to present your work in front of an audience. When I was 16 years old, I didn't have a program like Key to Change in my neighborhood. I grew up in the Highlands in Renton. And I had to take 3 buses to Bothell from the Renton Highlands in order to study with a teacher like me, who at that time played in the Seattle Symphony. He was the second chair in the first violins. And so fast forward to 2017, there's still no program where students who look like me or Layla, or just any student really in South King County can go and take lessons at a high level, but at an affordable price. That is who we are. And so I'm really pleased to be able to present Key to Change to you. And today what we're doing is talking about how to empower a new generation of student musicians and leaders. And I think, given just what John was talking about a little bit earlier, not to become political, but I think we all need a really good neighbor right about now, right? We need good, responsible, accountable, caring citizens in our community. And what better way to make that investment than in our young people? Because we know as adults, after you reach a certain age, you get kind of stuck in your ways. And it's a little bit more difficult to persuade someone who is kind of stuck in their ways to change their mind. So why not actually empower young people who are still curious and still trying to discover what the world looks like, a lens of what real equity, what real leadership, what real community building is through the violin or the viola. So, click. There we go. Oh, so just, all right, fine. You know who I am, Quinton Morris. I'm a tenured professor at Seattle University. I also host the show Unmute the Voices. Oh, there it is. Okay, it went back. And I'm really pleased to be able to present this work to you. I started at Seattle University in 2007. And so Key to Change is really an extension of my scholarship at the university, where I'm really able to engage with the community and engage with students specifically. And I feel like as a professor, a lot of times we kind of get stuck in the ivory tower of just doing the day-to-day work. But the real expansion and our responsibility as professors, I think, should be in doing that work in the community. So our mission is to inspire underserved youth through world-class music instruction and to support their development as self-aware leaders. So we're not just a violin or viola program where you come in, you show up, you take your 1-hour lesson, and then you pay us and you go home. We're really talking about what does it mean to stand up and present your work in front of a bunch of adults who are strangers to you. What does it mean to engage in a conversation with an adult on a social issue, or just talking about something like music, because we know that a lot of times for young people, their worlds can become very insular in the sense that everyone's on their phone, right? And as adults, we lose patience. Why are you always on your phone? So we build that community where students are able to not only engage with adults, but they're also able to engage with one another, where they're talking to one another. They're sharing stories about their practice sessions or sharing stories about how they perform for a bunch of adults at the Rotary Club in downtown, and it's, midwinter break, and instead of being at home, I'm out learning about the instrument and talking and meeting new people. That's what we do at Key to Change, is we teach students how to function in this ever-changing world using the violin as the vehicle for them to become successful. We know that in underserved communities, especially in communities of color, that students a lot of times are taught down. The students are not being taught how to rise to excellence, and they are not being provided the rigor in order for them to accomplish what we know they can do, because there is this almost kind of savior mentality. It's the violin. The violin is hard. Black people don't play the violin, and they certainly don't play it well. That is the real truth of what we're talking about. And so we bring professors and we bring in professional musicians from the Juilliard School, from Yale, from University of Texas, who come in and mentor and teach our students and show them exactly what is possible. That is our mission of how we empower students. And we tell each student that you belong here. So we know that students, I was a product of this, of being the only person in the room that came from an underserved community when I was in my youth symphony orchestra, or when I went to a summer music program. There were not students who had stories that were similar to mine. We bring these students together and we share with them that they all belong in this space. And because of that, we have a very high retention rate, where students who begin in our program in middle school continue with us through high school. And in my case, I now have identical twin boys who are now studying with me at the university, who I have known since the 7th grade. So Key to Change is also becoming a pipeline where students are not only able to receive a high level of excellent music instruction and leadership skills, but they are now going onward to college, and in some cases, continuing to study with me there. As you heard earlier, a couple of our students have met some people from the White House. As you can see to the left, there is Dr. Jill Biden with 3 of our students who performed and met her. She was very gracious. And then Layla, along with another student, met former Vice President Kamala Harris and also performed for her. In the past 5 years, 8 of our students have made their professional debuts with Seattle Symphony, with regional orchestras, including 3 with Seattle Symphony. Seattle Symphony is arguably one of the top orchestras here in the West Coast, as well as in the country. I didn't make my debut with Seattle Symphony as a soloist until I was 30. Our youngest student made her debut at Seattle Symphony when she was 13. And she had only been playing the violin and studying in our program for 2 years. So that is the other thing that we do, and we do very well, as students who come into our program, they learn at an exceptionally high level, and they also progress very fast in our program. So students that you hear who have been playing, you might assume, oh my God, they've been playing for 10, 15 years, and then you discover they've only been taking lessons for 2, 3, 4 years, some cases 5. So this is a student who made her debut. I think she was 13 at that time. Here's some other students here. Northwest Symphony Orchestra to our left. This was just as recent as a week and a half ago, this past Friday. Mason Nguyen, who's been taking lessons for 2 years now, private lessons for 2 years, been in our group lesson class for 2 years, so he's been in our program for 4 years. Just made his second debut He made his debut last October with Seattle Philharmonic as a soloist, and then made his debut just a week and a half ago with Northwest Symphony. To the right is Eden Palos, who has soloed with Seattle Symphony twice. She's also soloed twice with Northwest Symphony, soloed twice with Federal Way Symphony, also performed as a soloist with UW Philharmonia. So Eden she's now a senior, and she has kind of cultivated a little career for herself. And I should also mention, she started lessons with us when she was in middle school during the pandemic. And do you remember during the pandemic, what were kids doing? Learning on Zoom. She learned violin on Zoom. Yeah. And she has just really progressed quite quickly. Students have also performed for the Kraken, Seattle Kraken, 15,000 people, that was about a month ago, performed there on the ice, which was great. And even the president of Seattle U gets in on the action of playing and learning the violin, and he came into our studio for an Unmute the Voices episode, and you can see me there with him, giving him a violin lesson. So you might ask, what is it that we do to create this string studio of student leaders and musicians, and how is it that we actually do that? We really focus on our values. What is it that we value as an organization? What is the purpose of the students being there? And how do we build community so that all people feel included and welcomed? Just a couple of things about our organizational DNA of what we do. We foster long-term relationships with families and students. We have progress reports. We check in weekly with students. We have all sorts of ways of how we as a staff engage all of our students so that they are not only happy, but we know that they are learning and excelling and thriving in our program. Our goal is to provide a high level of service and value to our students, always. And we never compromise on what it means to provide high value in how we serve our program and the value of how our students experience our organization. Some just kind of metrics for you. The first couple of years of our organization, we grew 50%. We had a big hike during the pandemic, 233%. And since then, we've maintained about 92% of our student body, and now we have a waiting list. We actually are conducting a national search right now. We're in the finals of that, of hiring a full-time music instructor. And we have 3 very excellent candidates, 2 from the East Coast and 1 local person. We're doing the work. The work, when you're talking about serving underserved students or communities, it isn't always easy. It can be, frustrating at times. But we are really committed to really serving this population of people and making sure that they have what they need. So how do we do that? We have parent-teacher conferences with a few times a year with our families. We provide progress reports that are very detailed, outlining exactly what students are learning in our program. We write letters, very congratulatory letters to their schools so that their principals, their teachers all understand what it is that their students at their schools are doing in the community. We also call parents randomly and just say, hey, I just want to tell you how great your child is doing in our program. In other words, we keep the lines of communication open, which I think builds trust and honestly, just a deeper community. We're also very real and we're authentic. So we don't approach our families from a place of savior mentality. We're not trying to save anyone. We want to empower these people. So we're patient and we build trust with all of our students and everyone who is within our organization. We admit when we don't know something and we apologize if we've wronged anyone in any way. We don't bring any sort of pride in our service delivery. We don't know it all, and we can always learn from someone. And we're also an ally, and we speak up for the rights of students of color or those who have been marginalized, even if that means we have to stand alone. We're not compromising on our values. We also diversify and we include. Our repertoire is diverse, so we play the music of Black composers, indigenous composers, women composers. Students learn about the history of the people that they are learning from. We bring guest artists of color, as I mentioned, in, some of them at the Juilliard School, Yale, et cetera, and we integrate anti-racist practices into our curriculum so that everyone feels welcome and included. We've got some upcoming events, and we would love for you to come and see some of them. Layla West is making her debut with Tacoma, in Tacoma on March 7th. Haley Camp, who is an alum of our program, who is finishing up her second year of her master's at Cleveland Institute of Music, is doing an alumni recital. And then we have our amazing solo string festival where at Benaroya Hall on May 9th and 10th, and you can visit our website to learn more about those activities. And of course, there's my information as well. You know, I will also conclude with this, that, you know, I've been running this organization. In April, it will be 8 years. And I recognize, being a small nonprofit organization, also being a Black man running a nonprofit organization, that there's lots of stereotypes and there are misconceptions that come with running an organization when you are someone like me. We have been fiscally responsible. We have been in the black since the inception of our program. We have no debt. 0. And last year, we grew exactly 50%. Now, why do I say that to you? You all are business leaders. You all are people who invest and really understand the challenges that nonprofit organizations have. For our organization to thrive and be successful, we can't just have a strong mission. We also have to be fiscally responsible, because if we fail financially, we have just really hurt a lot of students' lives. There are a lot of students in our program and in the community who could really benefit from our tutelage. So we also have to be very responsible with our finances. And that's something that we have coupled both our organizational, you know, expenses, our operating expenses, coupled with our program expenses. And that is how we have been able to grow and sustain. And those types of practices, coupled with really strong core values, is why this organization will continue to do well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Dr. Quinton Morris. Appreciate it. Any questions before we get to a question? Oh, here we go.
Thanks, Quinton. Bravo. I love
Thank
what
you.
you're doing. You may not consider yourself as a savior, but I believe art saves lives. So, and Layla, is that? You were terrific. So, my question is, how do you choose your students? Do they have to audition? How many go through the program every year, and where does your funding come from?
So we accept students. Any student can apply. We don't turn students away. Well, we've put them on a waiting list now because we need another instructor. But we don't turn any students away. So students who have never played the violin or have played the violin for 10 years and want to come take lessons, we welcome everyone. Second question was, how many students? We're served, so yearly we serve a couple thousand, it's around 2,000. Yeah, so that's through being in schools, that's through our program, that's through outreach. We're really out there. And then thirdly, we have a number of different financial resources. Our largest is individual donations. And then we, of course, have some grants, tuition, et cetera. But our individual donors are those who really have supported our program. And oh, I should say, I'm really proud of this. Our budget is now $1 million.
Second question.
Thanks for joining us today and bringing these talented musicians with you. Can you expand a bit more on the challenge that you face in that they continue to cut basic arts programs across not just the Seattle district, but the greater Puget Sound area? What other ways are you exploring to try and bridge those gaps? And also a shout out to the person on the keyboard. As a reformed piano student, I thought he did well.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just say this is Chris Powell, please stand. Chris is on our staff and a wonderful pianist and coach, and so we're really glad to have him. He plays in all of our group classes as well as in our individual lessons. To answer your question about essentially kind of, funding and access, I think the real truth of the matter is what we do is we just try to support schools and provide resources to them if they have received any sort of cuts. We go into those schools, we talk to the teachers, we've talked to the principals, we have relationships with superintendents, and that has really been kind of our advocacy work, is just advising. We get asked a lot of advice on how to, help organizations or schools that might be struggling or might be, in danger of receiving cuts. And so we've helped them strategize. That has been kind of our way of kind of supporting our peers that have been around us.
Hi, I'm Steve Hall, and I'm really excited that you're here. It was really a great talk. And so I've been on my phone, and first I was looking up the Rotary International USAID partnership, which I wasn't aware of. And then I went to your website, and as I was listening, I decided to donate $250 to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I have the worst cold ever. I'm sorry. But thank you very much.
And last question will be over here. It sounds like with communication with the parents, with the students themselves and challenges, and empowerment is a great thing. You're trying to build someone up so they can achieve anything. And utilizing the violin as the instrument, is it because it's so challenging to master, and then once you accomplish that, you figure, like, I can do this in any other field of life, a sphere? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, the violin is a really difficult instrument to play. I mean, that's the #1 reason why kids quit playing an instrument. How many of you played an instrument? Raise your hands. Okay, how many of you quit playing the instrument because you didn't like the way it sounded? Okay, so about a third of you. And that's actually the #1 reason why kids quit playing the violin, is because it can sound terrible if it's not taught well. And so that's the first thing that we do, is teach students how to play with a beautiful sound. Yeah, but once you've achieved that on the instrument, then naturally you'll want to do it again and again, and that sort of builds up your confidence, and it instills some resilience, because you do have to practice the instrument, and you have to become more patient, because you're not going to get it on the first try. Well done. Thank you.
thank you, Quinton. This is really great. We have already given Quinton a thank you gift of 600 healthy meals from our Harvest Against Hunger, which he has, which has been provided by our Rotary Service Foundation. And I also, at this particular point, want to thank REB Enterprises, Carl Benke, and Bloodworks Northwest for their meeting sponsorship support. And just encourage anybody else in the audience to join us for supporting our organization and keeping some of our costs down. So we can always use more individual and corporate support as we go along. Given that, I'm going to call upon Jaime to provide us with some of the future programs that we have here at Rotary.
Thank you, President John. Hello, everyone. I would like to give one little update that I realized. Today was the first time in some time that we had a standing ovation. I have more fingers in my time in Rotary than we had a standing ovation, so... It was awesome. You don't see those. They're rare. What we have coming up on Wednesday, February 26th, Zoom-only lunch meeting, our Chief Harold Scoggins. Love that dude, right? We need a lot of love for the firefighters after everything has been going down. So we're happy to welcome our own chief for this month's Zoom meeting. He'll update members on what's going on with Seattle Fire and efforts to keep downtown Seattle safe. And then the following week, on Wednesday, March 5th, we'll have a lunch meeting with Governor Bob Ferguson at the Motif Hotel. We'll have a hard registration deadline for the event on Friday, February 28th. So you got to register before that date and time. We're very fortunate to have the governor come on a short notice because, please due to this, there's going to be a lot of security concerns, and this event will only be open to club members, guests of members, visiting Rotarians, and prospective members who we've been actively communicating with. So understand this is a selective few, but please come and tell the other Rotarians you don't see here today. Gino Hall will provide our short program for the day, discussing how Uplift Northwest will use their $75,000 in their large local grant. All good stuff. And then 2 weeks from then, on Wednesday, March 19th, we'll have a lunch meeting with Representative Marlin Strickland at the Motif Hotel again. Congresswoman Marlin Strickland represents Washington's 10th Congressional District, which covers parts of Pierce and Thurston counties. Born in Seoul, she is the first African-American to represent Washington State at the federal level and one of the first Korean-American women elected to Congress in its history. And coming up next, we have Nicole Klein and Susie Rowe for Happy Bucks. That's right. We already had $250 donated. Who else has got some money out there? I just want you to share some good stories.
Thank you. Lots of mentions today about SRSF. So we have a few improvements to our, infantile Happy Bucks program, but we're going to get better, everybody. One is all the money is going to go to SRSF. It's part of the bylaws of the club, and so we want to send the money on Happy Bucks to SRSF. We have two ways of doing it. You can take some cash, but it's better to do it Venmo. See, your little Happy Bucks there, a Venmo QR code, done for us by Candy Lee. We appreciate that she did that. And we have a couple of copies of this around the room. Nicole's holding one in the back. So keep your phones out, get your cash out. Who's got a few things of happy news to share with the company? Thank you, Anne.
I have happy news.
Let's use the microphone for the Zoom.
Happy news for 6 new members that have been paired with 6 mentors, and I'm going to give $6.
All right. Come on. Surely people have something good to say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Irene Stewart. I'm a visiting Rotarian from West Seattle. I happen to play the violin. Dropped it for a little while, but I grew up playing the violin, and I know just how important music education is for everything that Dr. Morris said. It really made me the person that I am today. Some years back, I served on the Seattle School Board and was a big proponent for music education. And keep your eyes on those school districts, all of them, because they let things slide. And I remember when I first started, they didn't even have instrumental music in every fourth grade classroom. And I think that that is a basic, fundamental place to start. And if we don't have music education in our schools, as well as the nonprofit programs, we will not have symphonies. We will not have the cultural environment that we enjoy so much in Seattle.
Thank you, Irene, and thanks for visiting. Perfect. I think we have big bucks from Laurel James. What would you like to say?
I'd just like to say this is the greatest club in the world.
All right. It's good to have you back. Anyone else? Oh, Vicki.
Susie, thank you. Okay, just want to call out, big shout out to Stephen Morse, Mark Wright, and John Scholes, Seattle 4 Rotarians, and that fabulous aquarium event that we had last week. So $20.
Thank you. Over here, Aaron. Absolutely. Nobody gets it free.
All right, yes, I'm Eric Corman from League of Education Voters, and my happy news is that student-led organizations around the state are doing Advocacy Day events in Olympia right now. There's one coming up in a couple weeks, the Washington Youth Alliance from across Washington State. They're busing in students from all over to advocate on the steps of the Capitol and meet with legislators, and these are our leaders of the future. So I'm excited about that, and I'll donate $10 for that.
Thank you. Any more hands? I think we made a good call today and some nice news. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. President John.
I'm taking my time because we have some time. No, I'm not going to. I'll actually give you back some time today, perhaps. But I do appreciate the entire performance today, the program and all. It is so vital in our schools. And thank you, Irene, for bringing that up as a former school board member. We really want to support that in the schools, and I can sort of say that from being past chair of the Alliance for Education here in town, which is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, supporting our Seattle public schools. And so that's coming up in April, another good thing to put on your calendar if you are interested in supporting our public schools here in Seattle. And of course, our performer today is a junior at Franklin High School, one of our Seattle public high schools, which I care an awful lot about since my daughter went there, my dad went there, you guys, my grandmother went there. Well, I went to Garfield, so. Thank you. Yeah, Jan and I were at Garfield at the same time. We won't say which years, but we were there at the same time. Anyway, I left my good old page of things that occurred on this date. Thank you. Yeah, you know, with age, that's what happens. You know, you guys, when Marilyn Strickland shows, that's March 19th. That's a special day in my book, mainly because March 19th, I'm going to turn 3/4 of a century. Thank you. And you can applaud that because I'm still standing up. That's about all that counts for it these days. Anyway, in 1846, Texas state government was formally installed in Austin, Texas. In 1881, Kansas became the first state to prohibit all alcoholic beverages. I don't know if that's positive or not. Anyway, you know about what happened in 1942, but in 1977, the Space Shuttle Enterprise made its first test flight atop a 747 jetliner. Well, today is the birthday of Lee Marvin, who's no longer with us, and Smokey Robinson, too, who is. And it's also Armed Forces Day in Mexico. And we won't talk about what that body of water is called anymore, but you can figure it out. I'm going to call it one thing, and somebody in the White House will call it something else. All right, with that, we are adjourned.